Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 20 of the Camano Voice. On this episode, I speak to the owners of the Stanwood Camano Windermere real estate company, Randy and Marla Heagle. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. On this episode, I get to speak with Marla and Randy Heagle. Now, in the beginning of my introduction with them, I say Heagle, and I don't know why, but I've always had their last name wrong, so it's Heagle. So anyways, apologize for that in advance. Anyways, they are the owners of Windermere, Stanwood Camano Windermere Real Estate. And so we get into how they got started in real estate, how long they've been on the island, why they love Camano so much, and then we get into the Arrowhead Ranch, which is Randy's kind of special project he's working on, and all the different things that they're going on there and what they see as the future for Windermere and Arrowhead Ranch. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Randy and Marla Heagle. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode. On this episode, I'm welcoming Randy and Marla Heagle. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
All right, so before we get started, tell us a little bit about Randy and Marla.
Wow, well, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. This last week, we took a little vacation on Maui. And but other than that, we're Washingtonians, native Seattleites, both born in Seattle. And what else, Rand?
Just love living on Camano Island.
We love living on Camano.
Nice. So what brought you guys to Camano Island?
So years ago, my business partner and best friend for many years bought a piece of property up here, and he told me that the neighbor had a piece that was coming on. And so it was just kind of a whim to come up, check it out, and fell in love with the place and bought the property.
Okay, so then when was that?
Oh, man, that would have been back in about 1990.
Okay.
Was when we actually bought it.
Okay, very cool. What were you doing in Seattle prior to that then?
Lived down in the Lake Forest Park area, and was with a company called Washington Energy Services, and we did all kinds of furnaces, water heaters, home improvements, that kind of stuff. And so when we first moved up here to commute down to Seattle, that was a bit painful. And I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore, particularly with the way traffic is anymore.
Yeah. How long were you commuting down there?
Until we bought the real estate company, and we bought that company in 2005. So I think we actually moved up here in about 1998, 99. And so from then till 2005 was the commute thing.
That is a long time. What were you doing during this time, Marla?
So I was selling real estate. I started selling real estate in 2001. And before that, I was a human resources manager for an international technology company and loved doing human resources, and also commuted from here down to Seattle or the Bothell area to do that. And then during the dot-com bubble, my company closed its Seattle plant. So I was out of a human resources job and wondered, what can I do on Camano Island to earn a corporate salary like I was making, and I really couldn't think of anything, and so continued my job search down in Seattle. And then one of our friends was dating a woman who was a real estate agent, and we were at a dinner party with them, and she said, Marla, you should be a real estate agent. And I said, oh, no, I'm a human resources person, not a real estate agent. And she goes, no, you should come and interview. There's some space open at our company. And so I went and interviewed with Dan Leon, and he hired me, and here we are today.
Very cool. So what was, if you're able to share, if not, that's fine. What was the real estate company?
It was Windermere Real Estate.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it was when it was located at the plaza.
Okay.
And evidently there had been a few agents that had recently left, so there was space for new agents. And I didn't know much about it, but he said, "You're hired. Go get your real estate license, and we'll train you." And so I did.
Okay. How big was the office during that time?
This was 2000, 2001. I would say there was probably 15 agents there, but we also had an office at the country club at that time.
Okay.
And we had an office at Rocky Point.
Okay.
Over by Huntington Store.
Got
at
it.
that time. So we had the three, and then soon after, Dan, Leon, and Ray Mueller, who were the former owners of Windermere, bought this building here at Terry's Corner,
Yep.
the bank building, and it became a real estate office. And
Okay.
that's when they asked me to manage. They said, "We'd love you to manage this office for us." And I said, "Oh, sure," because I was really loving real estate
Yeah.
from the very beginning, and began managing.
Okay. Very cool. So, how big was Windermere in total on the island during that time then? So you had 15 in your office, you said?
Yeah, I would say there was probably 20 to 25 agents.
Okay.
Maybe about that time. But we definitely had market share back then.
Yeah. How big
too.
are you guys now?
We have 49 agents now.
Okay. Very cool. Congratulations.
At one point, thank you. At one point, we had 75 agents working for our company prior
Wow.
to the Great Recession
Yep.
of 2008.
Yeah.
And we have now feel like we're at a comfortable amount,
Yeah.
a good team.
Very cool. So, going back just a little bit, what was both of your guys' so your background was HR. Did you go to school for that, or did you just kind of work into that?
I worked into it.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. And what about you, Randy?
As far as
Yeah.
Your background.
Yeah.
Oh,
work
background.
history.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I actually started working at my best friend and business partner. His dad had a little water heater company down in Seattle, and so when I was about 12 years old, I started working there. Weekends and summers and all that. And when I graduated high school, that's just where I went. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and we grew the company from probably 4 or 5 people at the time to well over 100, and really enjoyed doing that stuff. And
Yeah.
hired and fired and put in a lot of equipment and worked a lot of weekends and did all those things. And when the real estate opportunity came along, I thought, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be so much different and fun all the time. And I found out that human nature kind of works no matter what business you're in. And But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Okay, so both of you ended up not doing the college route. You kind of worked your way into your fields and then went from there. This actually wasn't a question I had, but it's a conversation that's come up quite a bit, I feel like, with different people I've interviewed. Where's your kind of view on college and importance versus just jumping into the work field?
That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on the person. Me personally, and I think Randy's similar, but he can tell his own version. But I just, out of high school, I had 3 jobs, and I was, earning a living, and I just, I went to community college, but I always felt like my place was just getting out of bed and working hard, and so I ended up just always relying on my job and have been able to advance everywhere I've gone just through a strong work ethic.
Yeah.
And so for me, college wasn't the right path, but, I think it definitely is so important for others, but just not me.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think there's kids that are cut out to go to college, and they'll get something out of it and, be productive members of society. I also think that there's a lot of people that go to college that probably shouldn't. If you're not enjoying school in high school, I don't know why you would go on to college. And I just see in all the different trades, and you see it on Camano Island as well, that there's a lot of these kids that ought to be getting out of school and going to work for a builder or an electrician or a plumber.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a great opportunity for young people doing that these days.
Right. And I was talking with, I believe it was Shayna we were talking, and just that, like, that opportunity, those skill sets are transferable around the world. So, like, if world travel is what you want to do, you can take those skills and implement them, around the world, and you don't have to go to college. You don't have to, do other things. So I do think there is such an opportunity now in those different fields, in a lot of different fields. So
Absolutely. And then Marla hit something else on the head, the work ethic. That's something that, and I imagine our parents said it about us, but there just doesn't necessarily seem to be the same work ethic. And I think that's too bad, because that's how you get ahead in this world. No matter what you're doing, get in, work hard at it.
Yeah, and that's something like growing up, my dad always told me, like, I was never the smartest person in the room, but he's like, I would outwork everyone, and that's the only reason why I would ever see success is just from work. And he tried to put that into us, me and my sister, when we were growing up, and so there's a lot of life lessons there.
For sure.
So then, how did you get transferred? How did you get started in with Windermere then, or real estate in general?
Well, Dan and Ray, who owned the real estate company after Marla had been managing for him for a couple of years, they knew they were getting to a point where they wanted to sell and go do something else. And so they actually approached us and said, hey, do you have any interest in buying the company? And at the time, I hadn't even thought about it. It hadn't even occurred to me. But again, I had business partners in the other business, and we said, well, what do you think? Maybe we'll partner up, buy this. Marla can pretty much run it, and then I'll transition into it. And that's really what we did. And then, unfortunately, the 2008 Great Recession, or the bubble, or whatever you want to call it, happened. And boy, then it was no longer fun. We were literally fighting for our lives.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that also kind of goes into some of our story, that why we're part of the reason we're so involved in the community. The previous owners had done a lot of stuff in the community, and they were always very generous. They would, write checks for different stuff, and they did some coaching of the Little League teams and that kind of stuff. But we just didn't have the money to give anymore.
Yeah.
And so we would offer ourselves instead. We'd say, okay, well, we've got a group of people. Do you need volunteers? What is it that we can show up and do that will help, but that won't cost cash?
Yeah.
And we also had chairs for our sales meetings and tables and stuff like that. So we started lending that stuff out to different people, and that just kind of became the beginning of what we really love to do, is get involved in whatever's going on in the community. Anything we can do to help somebody or help an event, we love to do that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's been clear. As I've gone to more and more events in this area and been more involved with the chamber and stuff. Usually there's a Windermere tent, and they're either doing burgers or hot dogs or hot chocolate or what have you, and they're always there and involved and it's involved both on the, I would say, the corporate level of as Windermere as a whole, and then as individuals as well. You see many of the Windermere agents and throughout the community working in different volunteer positions and things like that. So is that something that, like, does it just flow from the top, or is that something that was kind of more intentionally built in as you guys were working on building Windermere more?
Well, I would say that Windermere as a corporation, they're based out of Seattle, and they're very philanthropic through the Windermere Foundation and stuff like that. They're probably not as small community-minded as what we are. And, because of our location and so forth, some of our agents, we have just amazing agents that get involved in all kinds of different stuff. So it's super easy, super fun for us to support them. And then it works the other way when there's something that we have a passion for, that we say, hey, we want to do the Soapbox Derby. We're looking for some volunteers. And 90% of our people will sign up and show up and work their butts off and have a smile on their face. And so it's a lot of fun.
As an example, this morning we had our sales meeting, and we said, okay, chili chowder cook-off's coming up. We're going to do the bar, which we've been doing for a number of years, and then we're going to have our booth. And so we need people to sign up for shifts to do that. And our team knows that's coming, right? And so and when we hire somebody, we say part of the expectation of working here is to do time at community events. And it's fun,
Yeah.
We have fun with it, with giving out different things, or, wearing T-shirts that are similar or with our new brand or whatnot. So we try to make it as fun as possible.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys had a good background pairing in that Randy, you were managing people and stuff within the HVAC, and that Marla, you were already working with HR, and so you kind of had a strong background in that aspect. So that I think that's really neat that those were very complementary. And so how did that go with that? When did you guys make that decision that you guys would be working together on this as partners and stuff? And how's that gone?
Well, after Dan and Ray asked us to buy the business, it was a real big decision. And I didn't mention that before I went to work for the large company, I did work for Randy's HVAC company in HR.
Okay.
So I knew that's how I originally met Randy and his partner. And so we were a couple back through all this. And so he knew, we knew we could work together.
Yeah. Well,
because we'd worked together before. And so then he said, well, gosh, if I could just move my office up here to Stanwood Camano and not have to commute every day, that would be great. And so he did. And he got his real estate license and managing broker's license at that time.
And then we found out that it was better if we were in separate offices.
Yeah, that's why he sits in Stanwood and I sit on Camano. It just wasn't going that great when we shared an office.
It is something I think that shouldn't be overstated as well. Like I've known lots of family businesses and small businesses, and I do think it just works. I mean, the complementary skill set is always a plus. Yeah. But also having each person have their own department or how they manage or run a certain area. Like there's a bakery up in Bow that we used to work at, and the wife was in charge of the ancillary, so all the cookies, the pastry stuff, and the husband was focused solely on the bread, make sure the bread was perfect and everything. And they just found that worked for them, right? So
right.
I think there's a lot to be said that and then also being able to manage are we at work? Are we like having work conversations, or is this family time?
Right.
But obviously it's going well because you guys were able to do a nice little trip out.
Yeah.
Very cool. Congratulations again on 10 years. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, so then let's see. Where am I? Okay, so and I'm not positive on the timeline, but more recently you guys have started working on a Windermere rebrand, and you've been working on it. When did that start, and how did that come about?
Great question. So a couple of years ago, we realized that not just the real estate industry, but life and business was moving quick. And we definitely always want to be relevant. So we ended up hiring Maddock, which is a local marketing firm. And they have helped us. Our first campaign was We Are Stanwood Camano. So they basically helped us rebrand. We took the new Windermere logo and, just kind of localized it a little bit, and just we wanted to let the community know that we live here and we work here, and we understand this island. We understand some of the quirks with the wells and the road easements and septic systems and all those things, and that we are professional and that we work here and that we want to help you. So that was really the impetus behind We Are Stanwood Camano, was just to reach out locally and say, we're here for you.
Yeah.
We want to help.
Yeah.
So I have to assume that when you see somebody drinking a Starbucks coffee or something like that, it must drive you crazy. You go, wait a minute, why wouldn't you? And that's how we feel. We feel that if you're either going to buy or sell on Camano Island, why would you use anybody other than Windermere? We just believe we have the best people that can do the best job. And it sort of drives us insane when we see people from out of the area that come up here to sell real estate. And nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily understand the ins and outs of it.
Right.
And so we're just always looking to get that message out. We don't want to be the ones on mute. We want people to know that we believe we'll do the best job that can be done for you.
Yeah. And I think that's true in business, and you have to believe that about your own business, or you shouldn't probably be in it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't feel you can provide the value for what you're charging and everything like that, then what value are you bringing if you can't believe? So
Exactly.
that's very cool. So you guys started down that path. So Windermere corporately allows you to kind of modify slightly on things like that, logos and
Very slightly.
Okay.
Yes. There's
Very
a
cool.
whole manual of graphic standards.
Yes. Well, that's what I was surprised because like a lot of big companies and stuff, they won't they're like, nope, this is what it is. Like we don't want you.
Early on we introduced them to Matic,
Mm-hmm.
and we said, hey, we've hired Matic, and we'd like you two to work together to make everything flow.
Yeah.
Social media wise, digital ads, print ads, everything like that.
Very cool. So then, you've gotten through that major part. Are you guys starting other projects then that are kind of flowing from that?
We do have our current campaign is called Welcome to Camano Island, and as a matter of fact, today we're shooting a video. I think it's called Choose Your Adventure or Find Your Adventure, and it's just following a couple around Camano, seeing them do a lot of the things that are available to do in the fall, because a lot of things, people think about crabbing and fishing and all of those awesome things you can do in the summer, but right now, what other things can we do here? And so we're focusing on that right now, and it's called the Welcome to Camano Island campaign.
Yeah, that's very cool. My family and I think last Thursday, it was overcast during the day, and then I texted my wife. I was like, let's go on a hike at Barnum Point. I kept hearing about it with the kids. Let's go there. We'll do a hike, and then we'll get dinner at Taft. And right as she got here and we headed over there, it started dumping rain.
Oh.
So don't worry. You can always do a hike in the rain on Camano, too. So.
You did it. Good.
Yeah, so we did the shortest hike there we could.
Isn't that an amazing place?
It is. It was really neat, and I'd love to go back and explore it more because there was all the different trails, great for kids, just all the trails to the woods. And I remember as a kid, I would run through. We would play around in the woods as kids and stuff like that, and it definitely brings that feel because there's less of that on Camano now. So, I thought that was a really neat thing. So. All right, Randy, you've started actually another project on Camano. And it's been going for a little while now, but tell us about Arrowhead Ranch.
Oh, the Arrowhead Ranch. That is my dream and my nightmare all wrapped up into one. But long story short, we've been doing the All-American Soapbox Derby in Stanwood Camano now for 12 years. And we always did that on a street in Stanwood, and it was just an awesome location, and the city was always very helpful with it, but it was a lot of extra work. It was a real pain. And so I'd always told Marla that one of these days I want to find a piece of property that we can just put a track on so that we can just do this a lot simpler. And I had been driving by that particular piece of property on Arrowhead Road for a couple of years, and it had been for sale. And it just wasn't, it was overpriced, and never really occurred to me that had the right shape to it. And then I don't know if you remember the empty building in town, the old hardware store, Ace Hardware, back behind Hagen's there.
Okay, yeah.
And
It's now the Dollar Tree, I think.
Dollar Store. And they would lend that to us. People that owned that building when it was vacant, they would lend it to us to use for the Soapbox Derby. And I would stand in there and I'd tell Marla, man, I would love to buy this building. And she said, well, what would you do with it? And I said, well, it'd be great for the Soapbox Derby for once a year. But, wouldn't it be cool to put in a makerspace or do something like that? And anyhow, as I was thinking about that, it started to become I'm going to do something one way or another. And then it happened to be going by that piece of property on Arrowhead Road, and they'd reduced the price. I saw it come up with a pretty significant price reduction. And I just called her up and said, Marla, we got to buy this thing. And it gives me my Soapbox Derby track, or a place to do it. It gives us a big building where we can build the cars and so forth. And someday it'll be a makerspace as well. So my dream is to continue to do that Soapbox Derby and other things that come along with that. Like, the Olympic luge team was out there this summer, and we just heard they picked 2 kids from the area to put into their program.
Oh, very cool.
And then we just started up the little axe throwing part of it. And that was actually an Eagle Scout project. It was Jonathan Heagle was a Soapbox Derby kid a few years ago, and then he called me up and he says, hey, I need an Eagle Scout project. And he says, I'd love to do something at the Arrowhead Ranch. You got any ideas? And so we kind of brainstormed
very
it.
Cool.
And it started out, it was just going to be kind of a fenced-off chain link area. And it turned out that his grandpa was a retired builder. And as we got to talking about it, he said, well, gosh, we ought to put a roof on it. And we ought to do this and ought to do that. And pretty soon it was a full-blown pole building. But, yeah, so that, and then, so the Soapbox Derby, the axe throwing part of it. We're doing some charcuterie board classes there.
What's that?
I'm going to let Marla tell you about that.
Okay.
Well, so during the process of getting the ranch ready, they took down a few trees at the ranch, and we have, actually Randy got me for Christmas one year a sawmill, so he could plane these or cut these trees into
lumber
at the ranch. So anyway, but we've got these long live edge wood slabs that we've cut into chunks, and the people who take the class can pick out their own slab, and they can sand it down and put some mineral oil on it, and it becomes a beautiful live edge wood slab to put charcuterie or cured meats, cheeses, crackers, anything. You can put, we saw some cookies on one this morning, but you can put anything really on one of these boards, food-wise.
Oh, very cool.
And then we put a little Arrowhead Ranch brand on it, and you can take it home. So we've been starting some simple classes like that. We just scheduled 2 wreath-making classes for December.
Okay.
Just things where we use local wood or greens or whatever we can find, but it's just been really fun because the items that people can bring home are pretty relevant and fun and
and so that's kind of the beginning of what this whole makerspace is about. And a lot of people don't understand what a makerspace is, and it's really like a community shop.
Okay.
And so if you took a look at the Stanwood High School and said, okay, they have a wood shop, and these are the tools and equipment they have, and this is what they have in the metal shop, and you can weld, and you can use a cutting torch and a plasma table. So those are all things that we'll have over at the Arrowhead Ranch, and some of the machinery is already over there. It's a matter of getting it hooked up, getting it working, and then there's so many talented people in this community that, Boeing people, car people, artists, all of that stuff. So as we look down the road, I'd love to have some different leather making, or, leather wallet, come make a leather wallet, come make a leather belt. The wreaths will be a fun one. I'm just waiting for some equipment to come in that's blacksmithing type stuff. So come over, take a class how to take a railroad spike and make it into a letter opener or a corkscrew or that type of stuff. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, the dream is to have a place where people can come together and share ideas and create stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get involved with the Boxcar Derby then? How did you get connected with them?
So when Marla and I first bought the company, we were looking for something that would be a community type event that would bring the businesses and the families together. And, there's always been Little League and junior football and all of those things, but we thought, if your kid's not an athlete, what are some other things that might work, and how do you really get the businesses involved in it? And we happened to be driving through Seattle, and we saw these soapbox cars that had been built for Red Bull soapbox. And they were just the most amazing, beautiful. They were shaped like fish, and they were made out of metal. I mean, probably a couple of Boeing engineers built them. And so we stopped and looked at them and asked them what they were for, and they told us. And as soon as I got home, I got on the internet and got on the phone and got in touch with Red Bull and said, hey, we want to do one of these in our town. And they said, great, how big's your town? And we said, well, it's about 15,000. And they said, oh, not even close. They said, Seattle isn't even big enough for one of these. So it's not going to be a Red Bull. But as I was doing the research, I kept coming across the All-American Soapbox Derby. And so reached out to them, and they had one up in Mount Vernon at the time. So we drove up there and watched their race and kind of saw how it all worked. And, all these little cars with the kids in them, and they have company names on them. And it was just really a neat thing, and it was like, okay, this would be a really neat thing to bring to Stanwood. And so, it's grown every year since we've done it, and we really enjoy it and have fun with it.
Yeah, that's very cool. So when you get involved with that, you actually have to, do it from the ground up. It's not like they come in and help you kind of run the whole project?
Yep, that's exactly right. And what was funny at the time, one of our agents, Ed Benarzak, who does voiceover work and some other stuff on Camano here, he was sitting in the office one day, and I told him, I says, just got off the phone with the people from this thing called the Soapbox Derby. And he goes, "Oh my God!" He says, he was from Culpeper, Virginia, and he had been very involved in setting up and running their race back there. And so he said, "Man, I can put you in touch with the people."
Oh, cool!
So he was just instrumental in really helping us put the thing together. Then we had a local. We built these big old starting ramps. Evan from Cascade Lumber, he's always super generous, and he gave us the materials to build some starting ramps, and they were big clunky things. And at the time, we did our practice runs up where Copper Station is now. They had put in all the streets and sidewalks and curbs, and then everything went bust in real estate, so the thing was sitting there vacant. So we do our practice stuff up there, and. It's been quite a ride. It's been a very fun thing.
And I remember in the very first year, they said the All-American Soapbox Derby said you need 12 cars to hold a race, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of touch and go, like, are we going to have 12 cars? And I remember, we ended up buying a few extra cars, and a couple of our agents bought cars, but we made it. Mm-hmm. And I just saw a photo the other day of the original race of all these brand new little cars. But now this last year, we had 97 cars.
Wow.
Which was really exciting.
That's awesome.
So it's really grown every year. It's becoming a little wider known, and all of the amazing things that kids can learn from building a car, all the STEAM skills, because they're learning, how the brake works, how the steering works, how the wheels attach, and then getting to build it and then drive it down the car it's just fun seeing the light bulbs come on for these kids.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because we've done, as a kid, and then my kids have done, the Pinewood. It's a real version of that.
Right, life size.
Yeah, but that's really cool.
Now, how old are your kids?
My two oldest are 8 right now. They're twin girls, and then I've got a 6-year-old son and a 3-year-old son.
Well, 7 years old is when it starts. I would expect to see a couple 8-year-olds out there trying it this year.
All right.
At least
they can come and practice with Randy.
Yeah, they can come practice and see if they enjoy it. But
okay.
Super fun event.
Yeah. No, they would love that. They would love to be able to. They're always up for trying new things. So
perfect. And you probably have a lot of spare time, too.
Yeah, of course. Oh, very cool. Marla, what do you see as the future of Windermere moving forward then?
Oh, gosh, so many things. I am excited. I love, how Randy is so passionate, of course, about Windermere, but really also about the ranch. Mm-hmm. And he's an idea guy. He's basically very exhausting, as you can tell. He's got lots of big plans. But I love Windermere, and I'm focused on what we do. I guess I'm really optimistic about the future. Our team, we're continuing to grow our team. Every once in a while people move on, and we hire new people, which I think is great. I mean, it's always hard to lose somebody, but at the same time, I think turnover is somewhat good. And gosh, I think we do a good job in staying up on, what's going on with, we have a forecaster on staff too at Windermere.
Okay.
Corporate economist.
Economist.
Yes, not really forecast. Anyway, but he forecasts the future, which is so helpful. But then I also do a monthly statistical report, so we can stay up to date on what's really happening here, hyper-local in Stanwood Camano. Mm-hmm. We just have weekly meetings with our team, so we're all kind of on the same page as we go forward. I mean, real estate is always changing. Mm-hmm. There's always disruptors going on out there, but at the end of the day, people are always going to buy and sell real estate, and we want to be here to help them. Yeah,
that's very cool. And you guys, as far as training and everything like that, of getting people up to speed as a real estate agent, do you guys does Windermere have programs? Do you guys have programs? How does that all work?
Both. So for a brand new agent, Windermere has a class called Pro Start that we would send a brand new agent to. That's a week long, and that's where when you take the real estate test, by the way, you kind of learn, or when you take the real estate classes to take the test, you basically learn how to pass the test. You don't really know how to sell real estate when you get your license, right? You just kind of know you can pass the test. So then we send a new agent down to Pro Start for the week, and that's when they start to learn a little bit more about forms and contracts and conversations and things like that. And then they come back with us, and we send them to a class called Ninja Selling, which is basically talks about I don't really know how to explain that selling real estate is more a relationship than, it's an attraction versus going out and pursuing someone. And so it's just basically relationship-based conversations and things like that, because truly we are just here to help people. We are not here to pursue, and sometimes real estate agents get a bad reputation, and we just don't want to participate in that. And we talk about that a lot, is, why are we really here?
And I just jumping in for a sec, my podcast with Jim Ayers just aired, but he went over that as well. Like, he's like, every time I end up like getting a new customer and stuff, we become friends, and that's kind of been a common theme with talking to local real estate agents and stuff. Like, that's definitely the feeling they have, is like, it's like we're friends, and then I'm just happy to show them houses and stuff.
Right. We're all residents here, and we love it here, and we're excited when somebody else wants to come here, because this is a magical place. Yeah. That there's nothing that's impossible here on this island, and it's a really great place to live and work. And so anytime people want to come up and join us, we would love to help them. Yeah.
That's very cool. All right. Well, I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. So I'll ask them, and I'll let one and then the other answer. So on the first one, do you have a lesser known or favorite location on Camano Island that you like to hang out?
Oh, I can go first on that one. Absolutely. Arrowhead Ranch. That is where I like to spend my every spare moment. But there are so many amazing, cool places on Camano Island. Cama Beach happens to be one of my favorites. I just think that is just a magical spot down there.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, I am also going to say Arrowhead Ranch. And I never thought it would be Arrowhead Ranch. But at sunset, when you're down by the axe throwing barn and the sun filters through the trees, and we've always lived, near the water, so I kind of think Camano Island, you need a view of the water. But man, that territorial view down by the axe barn is beautiful. And I love it at Arrowhead Ranch.
Yeah, well, and we had the final chamber barbecue that day, and I happened to be down there right during that time, and it was beautiful. It was before everyone else had come down. It was like just quiet, and it felt very peaceful. I was like, I just go out there and hang out. But
yeah, anytime.
Very cool. All right. Pretend you guys have a friend coming in from out of town. What would their first day look like here?
What I would say is I just would go to summertime, but we love to bring people over to the little bakery and get a cup of coffee here, and then...
And a cinnamon roll.
And some of us do cinnamon rolls, some of us others. And then if crabbing's open, we love to make that part of it.
Yeah.
Again, that's just a magical thing for people that have never done it or that don't get to do it all the time, and really enjoy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes just driving around the island, too. Just showing them home sweet home.
And Arrowhead Ranch.
Yeah, and of course always the Arrowhead Ranch. How about you, Marla?
Same. I think it's fun to start here at the marketplace and then just take off from there and maybe come back for lunch at Taft or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe hit the winery too, the Edward Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's, I grew up here, and so you grow up going crabbing in the summer, and it's, part of what your routine is, and then people from not around here, they've never done that, they've never experienced that, and so it's really neat to be able to do that. We did that with our kids. My dad took, I was with them, but we took the kiddos out for the first time crabbing this year, and it's just hilarious how each one does it, interacts with it, because my older son was super into learning to be able to pick up the crab and hold it. He's like, all right, I got it. And then one of my daughters was like, I want to see. And then when they got dumped out, she just went to the back of the boat, was like, I'll stay back here and watch. So, and then my other one's, my other daughter's concerned, are they doing okay? Are they happy? Super animal lover. So,
that's great.
All right. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
My gosh, there are so many choices.
Let's pick one. I've picked mine.
All right.
You can list a few. I'm happy to.
All right, I'm going to throw a couple out there. Business people are who fascinate me. To be able to operate a business on Camano Island, it's a unique thing, I think. So I would say John Ebner, and he brings the art and the business together. I think Mark from Huntington's Store, he would be an interesting guy to talk to. And then probably Bruce from Camano Marine. Those are kind of who I would lean towards. Marla, how about you?
Pharmacist Mark Phibbs
Yeah.
that had the pharmacy here locally and now is at QFC. He's a fascinating person.
Yeah.
And
I'd
fun.
love to have.
Fun and fascinating.
Yes.
Very cool. I'm just taking notes. That's why there's a pause. Okay. All right. And then lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard right as you're driving on the island, what would that say?
We have 4 billboards on the island.
It's called Windermere.
And they say, they say, welcome to Camano Island. And that's what they say. I mean, I think that is, really, that's what we feel when we see somebody new to Camano. Mm-hmm. We want them to feel welcome. And all of our boards say, welcome to Camano Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I like
Do you
it.
think? Welcome to the Arrowhead Ranch.
Yeah.
Come visit. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah,
thank you for having us. That was fun.
All right. And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Randy and Marla for joining me on the podcast, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want more information on this episode or previous episodes, go to CamanoCommons.com/podcast. That's CamanoCommons.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.